Picture this. You're standing in a studio, the lights are bright but not blinding, and there's a photographer adjusting their camera, looking at you through the lens. You feel a bit awkward, not quite knowing what to do with your hands or where to look. Then comes that gentle, guiding voice. Chin up, eyes here. A pause, an assessment, and then maybe a touch closer. These simple instructions might seem mundane, even forgettable, but they encapsulate something profound about human connection, self-perception, and the art of capturing moments. Today, I want to take you on a journey through what happens in that space between the camera and the subject and why those small directions can lead to transformative experiences. Photography sessions can be intimidating. There's something vulnerable about being the focus of someone's artistic vision, knowing your image will be preserved exactly as you appear in that moment. The photographer, armed with technical knowledge and creative vision, holds significant power in this dynamic. They see us through their viewfinder in ways we can never see ourselves naturally. When they say chin up, they're not just adjusting your posture. They're inviting you to present yourself with confidence. When they direct your eyes, they're creating a connection that will translate through the final image. And when they ask you to come a touch closer, they're breaking down the barriers that often exist between strangers, creating intimacy where there was distance. Let me share with you what happens on both sides of the camera and why understanding this dance between photographer and subject matters for anyone who's ever felt uncomfortable having their picture taken, which, let's be honest, is most of us at some point in our lives. From the photographer's perspective, every session is a complex orchestration of technical skill and interpersonal connection. When a photographer instructs you to lift your chin, they're thinking about multiple factors simultaneously. They're considering the light, how it falls across your features, how it creates shadows that can either enhance or detract from your appearance. They're thinking about angles, how the tilt of your head might emphasize your cheekbones or jawline. They're contemplating composition, how your position relates to the background and other elements in the frame. But more than these technical considerations, experienced photographers understand the psychological dimensions of their craft. They know that most people feel vulnerable in front of a camera. Research has shown that approximately 75% of people experience some form of camera anxiety. The photographer's directions serve as more than technical adjustments. They provide structure and guidance that helps alleviate that anxiety. When they say chin up, they're also subtly saying, I'm here to help you look your best. It's a reassurance wrapped in a direction. Let me explain why this matters beyond just getting a good picture. These interactions represent microcosms of human connection. The photographer is essentially saying, I see you, and I want to help others see you too, in the best possible light. In a world where we often feel invisible or misunderstood, having someone focus entirely on capturing your essence can be a profoundly affirming experience. The instruction, eyes here, serves multiple purposes in photography. Technically, it ensures that your gaze aligns with the camera lens, creating that direct connection with whoever views the photograph later. There's something powerful about a photograph where the subject seems to be looking directly at the viewer. It creates an immediate emotional bridge. Studies in visual perception have shown that humans are naturally drawn to eyes and images. We seek connection through gaze, even in two-dimensional representations. But this direction does something else too. It establishes trust between photographer and subject. When you look where directed, you're placing faith in the photographer's vision. You're saying, I trust that you see something worth capturing. And when the photographer meets your gaze through the lens, they're accepting responsibility for that trust. This exchange might last only seconds, but it creates a foundation for the collaborative art that photography truly is. Now, let's consider what happens when the photographer says, maybe a touch closer. This seemingly simple direction actually transforms the energy of a photo shoot. Proximity changes everything in human interaction. Anthropologists have studied the concept of personal space extensively, noting that allowing someone into our intimate zone, typically within about 18 inches, is reserved for those we trust. When a photographer guides you to step closer, they're inviting you into a space of creative intimacy. From the subject's perspective, this request can initially feel uncomfortable. We're conditioned to maintain certain distances with strangers. But as you take that step forward, something shifts. The frame becomes more focused. Background distractions diminish. The photographer can capture more detail, the unique color variations in your eyes, the genuine emotion in your expression, the authentic you that emerges when barriers begin to fall away. I once spoke with a portrait photographer who described this moment as the threshold of authenticity. She explained that there's often a visible transformation that occurs when someone steps closer to the camera. Their posture changes subtly, their expression becomes more genuine, and something in their eyes shifts from guarded to open. It's like watching someone step out of their social mask, she said, and into their true self. For the person being photographed, the experience of following these directions can be surprisingly emotional. Many people enter a photography session with a lifetime of insecurities about their appearance. They worry about double chins, asymmetrical features, or showing too much vulnerability. The instruction, chin up, might trigger internal resistance, but I don't like how my neck looks when I do that. The direction to look directly at the camera might awaken self-consciousness. Will they see all my flaws? And the request to come closer might activate anxiety. Will they notice every imperfection? Yet something remarkable often happens when you surrender to the process. Those very insecurities begin to dissolve. There's liberation in placing yourself in someone else's creative hands, trusting their vision when you can't see what they see. Many people describe feeling a growing confidence as a photography session progresses. The initial stiffness melts away. Forced smiles become genuine laughter. Self-consciousness transforms into self-expression. Let me share a personal anecdote that illustrates this transformation. A friend who had always hated having her picture taken decided to invest in a professional portrait session for her 40th birthday. She described arriving at the studio feeling tense and awkward. I was already mentally criticizing every photo before they were even taken, she told me. But the photographer was patient and directive. With each chin up and eyes here, my friend found herself relaxing incrementally. When asked to step closer to the camera, she initially hesitated, then decided to trust the process. The resulting photographs stunned her. I didn't recognize myself at first, she said. Not because the photos were artificially enhanced, but because I'd never seen myself looking so present, so comfortable in my own skin. The photographer had captured something she rarely allowed herself to express: confidence, openness, joy. The simple directions had guided her not just to better photographic angles, but to a more accepting relationship with her own image. This transformation speaks to something deeper than photography technique. It reveals how external guidance can help us access parts of ourselves we struggle to reach alone. When someone we trust tells us to lift our chin, we stand taller. When they direct our gaze, we focus more intentionally. When they invite us closer, we allow ourselves to be more vulnerable. These physical adjustments often lead to emotional and psychological shifts. The eye contact element deserves special attention. In our daily lives, sustained eye contact is relatively rare. We glance at each other briefly during conversations, but prolonged eye contact is reserved for intimate moments. Yet in photography, we're often asked to look directly into the lens, essentially maintaining eye contact with a future viewer. This creates a peculiar intimacy. The photographer is asking you to connect with someone who isn't even present yet. Neurological research has shown that direct eye contact activates specific brain regions associated with social cognition and emotional processing. When you look into a camera lens as directed, you're engaging these neural pathways, creating a psychological state that translates through the photograph. Viewers respond to this directed gaze on a subconscious level. They feel seen, acknowledged, connected to the subject. That's why portrait photographers place such emphasis on eye direction. They're not just composing an image, they're facilitating a future connection between subject and viewer. The phrase, "maybe a touch closer," carries particular significance in our increasingly distant digital world. We live in an era where much of our interaction happens through screens, where physical proximity has been replaced by virtual presence. A photography session represents a counterpoint to this trend. It's an occasion where physical presence matters intensely. The subtle adjustments of distance between camera and subject can dramatically alter the emotional impact of an image. Professional photographers understand the powerful effect of this proximity. They know that when they guide you closer, they're not just improving composition, they're creating conditions for emotional authenticity. Many describe watching their subjects transform as they step forward. as though crossing an invisible threshold from performance to presence. This is particularly noticeable in portrait photography, where the difference between a good image and an exceptional one often comes down to this elusive quality of emotional presence. The collaboration between photographer and subject ultimately produces something neither could create alone. The photographer brings technical skill, artistic vision, and guiding direction. The subject brings their unique presence, their willingness to be seen, and their trust in the process. Together, they create images that speak to something authentic about the human experience. Our desire to be truly seen, our capacity for connection, our ability to reveal ourselves through something as seemingly simple as a gaze or a posture. When the session concludes and the final images are revealed, there's often a moment of recognition that transcends mere appearance. People see aspects of themselves they rarely witness, not just how they look, but how they express emotion, how they connect, how they exist in the world when they're not self-monitoring. A skilled photographer doesn't just capture your likeness. They capture moments of genuine self-expression that might otherwise remain hidden, even from yourself. This brings us back to those seemingly simple directions. Chin up, eyes here, maybe a touch closer. They're technical instructions, yes, but they're also invitations to present yourself with confidence, to connect authentically, to allow yourself to be truly seen. They remind us that photography isn't just about documenting appearance. It's about capturing essence. The next time you find yourself in front of a camera, whether for a professional portrait, a family gathering, or even a selfie, consider embracing these directions with new awareness. Lift your chin with confidence, knowing you're presenting yourself with dignity. Meet the gaze of the lens openly, understanding you're creating a future connection. Step a little closer, recognizing that vulnerability often leads to the most authentic representation of yourself. Photography, at its best, isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's not about hiding flaws, but about revealing truth. Those simple directions from the photographer aren't just about composing a better picture. They're about creating conditions where your authentic self can shine through. And in a world where we're constantly curating and filtering our image, there's something profoundly liberating about being genuinely seen, exactly as you are in that moment. So the next time you hear those words, chin up, eyes here, maybe a touch closer, remember that you're being invited into something more meaningful than just having your picture taken. You're being invited into a moment of authentic self-expression, a collaborative creation of something that neither you nor the photographer could produce alone. And in that collaboration, something magical often emerges. An image that captures not just how you look, but who you are. Total_char_count, 12,936.